Hello, everybody. Welcome here to Best of the West. Apologies for starting a little late here on this Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. Skylar Timmons here on my own once again. Unfortunately, Kenneth Weber indisposed once again. He's just going to keep on doing this to me, I guess. Now, we'll eventually we'll get Kenneth back, but appreciate you tuning in here. Sorry for starting a little bit late. Just getting some ducks in a row, but figuring things out. Running solo again here this week, but welcome here to the show on Blake Street Banner. We're here to talk all about the National League West. We're still in the middle of spring training. A lot of fun stuff going on around the league. Some fun stuff, mostly for the Rockies. Who would have believed it? The Colorado Rockies, first team to 10 wins in Cactus League play. Looking good as a unit, a lot of those young guys, and you're seeing the ebb and flow for a lot of the other teams cycling through teams, but hey, everybody's looking good, having fun. But probably the big talk of the camp that we'll kind of carry through this episode, talking all about rookies, Rookie of the Year candidates here in the National League West. And part of this is sparked by probably the top prospect in one of the top prospect in all of baseball, with Roki Sasaki, who made his debut with the Dodgers. We'll talk a little bit about if there's anybody else who could even dethrone him and take that crown away from Roki Sasaki, because it seems like out of the gate he's probably, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, Sasaki's probably your number one pick for the Rookie of the Year in the National League. But hey, there's a lot of other talent throughout the division that, hey, by some strange chance, somebody could maybe sneak in, but it would take a lot of factors. But coming into the season, Roki Sasaki seems like the big favorite among most pundits, and just logic of, hey, this kid's probably going to take home that crown. And made his debut the other night for the for the Dodgers. They're in spring training, tossed a couple of innings in his first appearance of the year, and hey, he looked every bit as advertised of what the Dodgers hoped he could get. Struck out 5 in his couple innings of work, topped out around 99 miles per hour, just pounding the zone, using that nasty splitter that he's got, that many scouts have said is the best pitch in the world, which, hey, that is pretty lofty claims that he has the best pitch in the world, but it looked every bit that in his appearance the other night. Pitched later in the game, around the middle innings, but the pitching against the Reds, basically unhittable. Reds whiffed on 7 of the 8 swings at his splitter. Only one ever touched the ball, and it was just a fly out. He had 4 of his 5 strikeouts on the splitter. So he came in looking every bit of what the Dodgers hoped he would be, and it just puts salt in an open wound for any team that was unable to really sway him to come to their team, because it's the Dodgers. Hard to compete with that. And so Sasaki comes in and immediately already looking like he's going to be the front runner for that Rookie of the Year conversation. Not much you can do with that. Not much you can do against that. But that's exactly what the Dodgers had hoped for, is this young guy who can translate easily to the big leagues and look every bit the part comfortably. Yeah, we can talk about the little simulation game. He gives up a home run and whatever. In actual in-game action against hitters, now granted it is later in the game, so often those 6th, 7th, 8th innings, you're not always facing the top guys in a lineup for any given team. That's usually when the minor leaguers, the younger guys, the non-roster invite guys start taking over. But still, not a bad first appearance for Roki Sasaki in his first official appearance as the Dodgers. But you have to still take it with a grain of salt, but it's an at least encouraging thing for a debut, because you got a couple weeks here where they'll be heading out to Japan here pretty soon, assuming he will make one of those starts. That's when even then you can take those with a grain of salt, because the weird start to the season the MLB started doing where, hey, let's have a game in the middle of March. Oh, and then they'll come back for 2 weeks and finish up spring training. Weird stuff. But so far, so good. But yeah, just like Norm's saying here, they are just spring training games. So we'll see how it goes in the regular season. And that, I think, is what will be the forefront here of Roki Sasaki. Yeah, is going to enter the season pretty much as the front runner for Rookie of the Year, depending on how he performs. And a big part of that is, can he stay healthy? And that's the biggest thing. He's dealt with some injuries these last couple seasons, and just naturally in Japan, they don't work as many innings. So he'll hopefully work never more than like 120 innings, I think is what he's thrown in his career in a season. That's going to be a big factor for him. But with the Dodgers' opportunities to run with a 6-man rotation and their depth of options, they can workload this management pretty easily and probably navigate a season pretty well and set up for the postseason. And that might be beneficial for Sasaki, who doesn't have to be the key mark player in that rotation, so that maybe takes some pressure off and he can work on his things. But when it comes to Rookie of the Year, I'm sure the Dodgers are hoping he can have a Paul Skeens-esque type of season out of that rotation. Because Paul Skeens, yeah, he didn't have the benefit of starting the day on the opening day roster with the Pirates. Because, hey, you got to mess with that manipulation of that service time somehow and ultimately have it backfire on you. But in that first season, like we know the numbers, looked good. 2.69 ERA in 127 innings. Gave up had 150 strikeouts, 35 walks, 12 home runs. Gave up 41 runs on 97 hits, went 9-4 as a 23-year-old. You look at those numbers, and you hope that, hey, are those numbers that Sasaki can replicate in a full season's worth? Get to that same workload and have that same success of a sub-3 ERA? If he can do that and get the strikeouts and be competitive and really adjust well, yeah, it's pretty hard to argue that he won't be the Rookie of the Year. So, by all metrics and optics and everything, yeah, he's probably holding that crown for the Rookie of the Year. And at the outset, that's probably going to be the storyline, the narrative throughout the season that, he's already got it locked up. Which we'll get into it a little bit with trying to talk about some of these other rookies and candidates for some of the other National League West teams. But I'm going to get on my soapbox here, my friends. And the thing I always hate every year when it comes to awards, it's always the narratives that are crafted by the writers and everything that then awards and stuff ultimately become a foregone conclusion that it's going to go to somebody. No, last season, yeah, Paul Skeens was very much deserving of the Rookie of the Year award. But you know who else was? Jackson Merrill for the Padres, who did it over the course of a full season as a hitter, having to play every single day. Paul Skeens can come out every 5 days and be dominant, which is awesome. But the Padres' success was helped so much because of Jackson Merrill. But because of Paul Skeens, with the notoriety of him being the number one pick and all the hype around him from his college days and everything, it becomes that foregone conclusion. And that's kind of what we're seeing with Roki Sasaki, where, yeah, he's the top prospect in baseball. He's going to be on that opening day roster. He's going to, he's already got the best pitch in the world and all this stuff. It's, like we're mentioning, it's just spring training still. We have to see what he does in the season. But it feels like that narrative's already being written, that they're already etching his name in on that Rookie of the Year award, when you got to let the season play out. Yeah, there's the hype and notoriety behind him, but let the season play out, because somebody else could have a very impressive season, perhaps more impactful rookie season that can steal it away from him. But what do I know? But I'll hop off my soapbox on that. But it does point to why isn't there a like rookie pitcher of the year award and a rookie position player of the year award? Because they're not equal. Yeah, there's always a really good pitcher, and then there's always a really good hitter. Why don't we have a separate award for those two things? Just like we have the Cy Young and we have the MVP. I don't know. But yeah, Sasaki looked good so far, but we got to see what happens throughout the rest of the season. Because, hey, I think, like, call me Astros saying here, unless arms start falling off again for the Dodgers, I doubt they use them like a top arm. Also, big ups on the Viz. Thank you for tuning in. But yeah, it's, like I mentioned, they have the depth, so they can ease him in, make sure he's healthy, and really help him with that adjustment. Because I think the plan is rolling with like a 6-man rotation or something. And you've got a billion arms that you can work with, and you can ease him in there as well with his mentors. Because Shohei will be back in May. Eventually, Clayton Kershaw will emerge from the injured list somehow, along with a bunch of other guys. You got a lot of options, but you got to expect that. Hey, Sasaki's got that top slot here, and we'll see. But who else in the National League West could take that crown, or at least throw their name into the ring, throw their hat into the ring to see if they could maybe sneak in and steal that from him. And we'll stick there with the Dodgers. Beyond Sasaki, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of opportunities for the rookies to crack through. Closest maybe Dalton Rushing could be the guy. He's their number 2 prospect according to MLB Pipeline. Catcher, outfielder. He has not looked too shabby in spring training thus far. He's looked good in the minors as he's continued to work up. But it's finding him room. And maybe if the injury to whatever is bothering Will Smith, because it came out he's been dealing with like some ankle bruising and kind of stuff here. Who knows? But maybe that puts a wrench in their plans to start the season. Hey, here's Dalton Rushing who can get his start with Austin Barnes. And they can work behind the dish to start the season. But I feel like it would take a lot for Rushing to sneak in there and really make an impact. Could be in that outfield position. Who knows? But we'll see with him. But the other guy that maybe, just maybe, could be Hyeseong Kim. And I know that might be a rough one because they're still trying to figure out what's going on with Hyeseong Kim. And whether he's going to be that guy, because there's that conversation of, well, maybe he needs to go start the season down in the minors to work on his swing. There's those kind of doubts maybe of, can he really fit in here? I apologize if I'm looking off to the side. I'm looking at my other screen, looking up stuff. But so far here in spring training, still getting a feel for it. He's 3 for 19 in spring training, 1 home run, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts. Hitting a $158, 273 on base, 316 slugging. So early going here for him. But we'll see with Hyeseong Kim. I think if he can settle in and really start showing off and really settle into playing in the majors and takes over that second base spot, playing more so every day, I think that could put him in that conversation. But I feel like he would have to do a lot offensively. And I feel like there's so many more players across the league offensively that would be more of a contender for that Rookie of the Year candidacy aside from him. Yeah, he has the experience, so he has the maturity and the track record. If he could really tap into that power in the big leagues, yeah, Hyeseong Kim probably does make a run for it. But I have a hard time seeing him even overtaking his teammate Sasaki, or perhaps even a Dalton Rushing if he gets a big amount of playing time this season. But other than that, with the Dodgers, a lot of their guys are still a little ways off. And they have so many of their already established players. They've got a few guys that'll pop in here and there throughout this season. A lot of them will be pitchers. Alex Freeland, another one of those guys, a shortstop. So they're number 5 prospects. So there's a lot of guys in there. Who knows? But again, it's hard to look across that. Guys that could maybe put their name in if they got an extended amount of time, especially one of those pitchers. But again, it feels like Sasaki entering the season is the go-to guy for that Rookie of the Year. But who knows? That's the beauty of baseball. As Bud Black says, that's baseball. Because, hey, you never know what you never know what you can expect or what you're going to get day to day. But yeah, interesting number of prospects for the Dodgers. They just need room, and maybe we could get a surprise in there. But a lot of those pitchers, and that's where they're clogged up, is pitchers. And no, I think it's really hard for a reliever to win Rookie of the Year. So it's either you got to be that starter or you got to be that position player that makes an impact. And yeah, they've got a lot of arms, but you got to find a way to put them in. And we'll see what the Dodgers do. But Sasaki's their man, and I think that's the pony they're going to bet on entering the season. So if we're going with our leading candidate per team, yeah, it's probably Sasaki for the Dodgers. I don't see Hyeseong Kim doing enough maybe to be the surprise dark horse contender. I'm sure the best case scenario is that he has just a good first season. That's productive, but who knows? But now we move on from the Dodgers. Let's look at the one that's been brought up here. San Francisco Giants that a couple of you are mentioning here in the comments. Here on YouTube, and if you're on Twitch, welcome as well. Here on Blake Street Banner, Skylar Timmons here. We're talking Rookie of the Year. Just talking about the Dodgers. Roki Sasaki may have it locked so far to start the season. Anything can change. But let's move on to the Giants. Who could the Giants put into that race to potentially overtake him? And question that I saw here from Call Me Astro about Jung Ho Lee, if he still has his rookie status. He does not, because even though he was on the injured list, he was still accruing the service time. So basically, a lost rookie season. Had that little bit of playing time, but because he was technically on the big league roster, on the injured list, was still accruing that service time. So he exceeds that rookie status during the 2024 season, which unfortunately, because he would have been a guy last year that, if he had stayed healthy, could have been in that conversation. And if he had maintained that rookie status, absolutely would have been in the conversation this season. But poor luck of the draw for him with the injury. Unfortunately, doesn't have that anymore. But the Giants in general, it's a little tougher for the Giants because the big name, and Norm's bringing it up here, if the Giants rush Eldridge, he could put up power numbers, but the average is pretty low with a very high whiff rate. Exactly. And that would be the guy maybe with Bryce Eldridge, contingent on if they want to rush him. But it doesn't necessarily feel like they want to rush him just yet. Maybe something changes. He starts the season in the minors and works his way up just so we can get a little more seasoning. Be like a May or even a June call-up to finish the year. But it seems like that's not going to be the route they go to have him try to rush him at the top of it. They've already sent him down from spring training camp. So they've already been kicked out of big league camp, part of the roster cuts. That happened this morning here on Wednesday. So he'll start the year in the minors. Definitely could still make a run, but he feels like it'll be like a June, probably into the summer. Feels like the time that he would at the earliest. Otherwise, they'll just let him season down there and then pick him up next year, and then he can make a run for that Rookie of the Year next season as their opening day starting first baseman. Because there's more seasoning, like you're mentioning there. Still some more seasoning. There's a lot to like in that bat. He's 20 years old. He breezed through the minors, jumped up quite a few levels last season. You can take a little bit of time with him. Lamont Wade Jr., yeah, he can hold down first base most of this season. They can throw some other guys in there. You don't have to be in a rush with him, But it's nice that he got that time in big league camp, and they're able to, you know, get him that exposure. And you hope that it's a good learning experience that then he can make a run for it come next season. Yeah, in minor league camp, played in 8 games. He had 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 home run, just 2 hits in his 11 at bats. So small sample size, but he's going to get some more seasoning down in the minors, and he would be a nice surprise halfway through the season. But I feel like Eldridge, probably next season. But who else for the? But with that in mind, if not him, who for the Giants? And I'm looking over at the prospect rankings over at MLB Pipeline, because everybody got their new top 30 released here. There aren't a lot of guys on this list that you could feel like, oh, maybe they can make a big run for it. Probably the top guy is, again, another pitcher, would be Carson Weisenhunt. Making his way up, pitched in AAA last year. Estimated time of arrival is this season. A good college lefty that they took in 2022. He was struggled a little bit in AAA. He's gotten beat around a little bit, but there's a lot to like about him. Got bounced around a little bit there in the Pacific Coast League, but it's the Pacific Coast League. You got to take things with a with a grain of salt there, because it is such a hitter's paradise, no matter where you go. And 5.42 ERA, not terrible, but still, there's things to work on. Now, he's 24 years old, so he's on the cusp, but there's not a lot that you could feel confident opening day to plug in and really starting them every day to make a run for that Rookie of the Year. And I think that's been a problem for the Giants for a while, because when's the last time they really had a breakout rookie talent? I think like Logan Webb, he's one of them. They've had the catcher and everything, but there's not a lot. And so it's them still kind of in this transition where they're trying to be competitive with additions to the big league roster. But I think Buster Posey also understands, we got to start drafting and developing better. Because you can look down that list of prospects. Trevor McDonald is a right-hander. There's a lot of pitchers specifically for the Giants, that are in that pipeline that could make an appearance in 2025. But none of them, that necessarily scream to you like, oh, this is going to be a huge breakout star. It's too early to tell. But Mason Black, Trent Harris, Trevor McDonald, you got Carson Seymour, Carson Ragsdale. Most of these players are pitchers. Of the offensive guys, with an estimated arrival here this season, is Wade Meckler in the outfield. Now, you could see him, because the outfield may be a little more barren for the Giants. If Meckler maybe could find his way to sneak in there, there's a guy. But again, his defense isn't that great. Not that great of a base stealer. The MLB Pipeline, the scouting report, compares him to Stephen Kwan, which, hey, that would be great for the Giants. But again, it's how does he fit into that? And so their prospect pipeline isn't that robust right now, especially position player wise. I think they're going to cycle through pitchers a lot. They've got a lot of talent there. But position player wise, I really don't see anybody in San Francisco making a run for it or being a notable contender. I think Weisenhunt was the one that MLB.com writers penned back in December as the one candidate for San Francisco. Yeah, that's probably the most reasonable thing. And even then, that rotation's pretty stocked up with Webb and Ray and Verlander. You got Hicks in there, and so there's not a lot of room to sneak a Carson Weisenhunt in there. I don't know. Yeah, so it's not a lot for the Giants there. But there's a bright future if they can cycle through that, cycle through those guys. But nothing really screams out. Maybe Eldridge, I think, next season. That would be my prediction. Let him play out this season, really get his feet wet, and play as much as he can in AAA until he proves, okay, he's really ready to take it in there. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, Whisenhunt here in spring training, couple of games, 3 innings pitched. He's given up 1 hit, has a couple of strikeouts. So small sample size, but hey, he's putting his name out there. But another guy that probably, no, depending on injury. So if something happens like a Robbie Ray or Justin Verlander, I think Whisenhunt is one of those guys. If he starts the season off well down in AAA, they bring him up and then he can make a run for it. But that's about all you can see with the Giants. And brings up that next point as we move on to the Padres here. And the Padres are another one of those teams where they don't have a lot of prospects that seem big league ready at the moment. They just keep adding. Here into spring training, they've just added so many of these random veterans. They just added Jose Iglesias on a deal. So not a lot of guys, but they have a lot of pitchers that maybe are like on the cusp there in AAA. That could make their appearance here soon, throughout this season, depending on some other things. But probably the main guy for the Padres that could be a surprise for that Rookie of the Year, and somebody I talked about last week, Tirso Ornelas, dude's doing his part. He's waited so long. He's been Rule 5 draft eligible, has been selected. He's been in that system for a while, for a long while. Finally gets added to the 40-man roster, and they're giving him that chance here in spring training to try and win that left field spot. He's in contention with big leaguers Jason Hayward and Connor Joe, but he's a guy who's making a run for it. He's putting his name in. He's doing everything he can here in spring training to get that spot. So far here in camp with the Padres, looking good. He's made 9 games. He's played 19 at-bats, 8 for 19. He's got a home run, 1 strikeout, 4 walks, which walks say a lot in spring training to me. Yeah, everybody's going to strike out, but if you're up there consciously working on your plate vision and you're drawing 4 walks, that's not too shabby, especially because this is probably the best he's ever been in spring training. These are the most at-bats he's ever taken in spring training, and he's making the most of it. 421 average, 522 on base, 789 slugging, a 1.311 OPS. Ornelas is getting it done, and I feel like he could be this season's version of Jackson Merrill, maybe of that breakout young star in the outfield for the Padres, that if he can just make left field his own and force the Padres to put him into that lineup as often as possible, and really could easily maybe not be the top one, but could finish top 5 in Rookie of the Year voting. If he can go out there and just replicate production, and use spring training as a kicking off point where he could be successful throughout the season. Because down in the minors last season, a good year in AAA El Paso, 128 games, 297 average, had an 864 OPS, 23 homers, 89 ribbies, 88 strikeouts, 53 walks. This is a guy that has good plate discipline. He'll draw walks. He's not going to strike out a ton. At least he hasn't in the minors. He's evolved over the years since 2017. If he could translate that AAA production to that same amount of playing time with the Padres in over 100 games with the Padres in 2025, yeah, you're putting yourself in that conversation. He could be that version of maybe a Nolan Jones for the Rockies in 2023. Bro, he's a top 4, top 5 finisher in the Rookie of the Year voting. I feel like he could do it. He's 24 years old. There's a lot to like about Tirso Ornelas, and I hope he gets that chance with the Padres to really show what he can do. Because, man, there's a lot to like there. And you look at those numbers and you can watch him, and just that confidence, I think, is what's helping him so much. And it's really exciting to see that for a guy who's, any guy that's been going through that journey, trying to work their way up through a system. And he's been doing it since 2017, slowly moving up, and now finally gets to AAA or finally gets up there and gets on that 40-man and is being given that chance. So it's really awesome for him, and I really hope he can pull through for the Padres, because how huge would that be for the Padres? They lost Jurickson Profar. They traded away Juan Soto a couple of years last season. They have Fernando Tatis Jr. and Jackson Merrill manning those two positions in the outfield. That's great. You need somebody else who can be a contributor and a cheap one to handle left field or that other outfield spot. Perfect opportunity right now. Ornelas, who, Jason Hayward and Connor Joe, good players. They're not starters. They would be a platoon situation anyway with just the two of them. But if you can substitute that with a left-handed hitting batter who can do pretty well, how huge that would be for him. And so Ornelas probably is the prospect who would be in the Rookie of the Year conversation for the Padres. Other than that, really nobody really stands out. Just a lot of pitchers that are on the cusp of cracking through. Who knows, but yeah, Ornelas, the rookie to look for with the Padres in 2025. If he earns that spot, and by all cases, so far so good for him, which would be nice. Now we move out to Arizona, and this is probably one of the biggest ones. Going back to a guy that they have been waiting on for a while, since 2021, Jordan Lawlar, still their number one prospect for MLB Pipeline, 22-year-old shortstop. Took 6th overall in 2021. Still waiting for him to finally crack through. And yeah, he made a brief appearance with the team. He's made brief appearance with the team before, but nothing yet. Injuries have really hampered him. 2024 probably would have been the year for him to kind of crack through and finally make a run for it and establish himself there with the Padres, but hasn't been able to just yet. But he's 22 years old so far here in spring training. Not off to a great start. He's 3 for 14, a home run, 214 average, 267 on base, a 787 OPS. He's made his lone appearance with the Diamondbacks back in 2023. Played 14 games, 11 strikeouts. Really rough in his 31 at-bats. So he's rushed up to the big leagues, but then injuries have hampered him, and they're just waiting for him to crack through eventually, because he has that potential to be the better option than Geraldo Perdomo. Defensively, offensively, he has those tools, but they're waiting for it to translate. Like Norm mentions here, Lawler's part of that 2021 draft class with 3 premium shortstop who haven't broken through. Got Lawler, House, and Mayer. You're right there. The jump from the minors to the majors is bigger than ever. And it gets even harder when you're dealing with injuries. Because when you're, especially a competitive team, but with the constant evolution year to year, every moment that you're not performing or you're not on the field, it's the chance for somebody to leapfrog over you to take your spot on the big league roster or on the depth chart. Now, we see that across baseball, and I think that's the dangerous area where Lawler finds himself in, because coming into the season, roster resource doesn't project him to be on the roster at all come opening day. Starting shortstop is Geraldo Perdomo. They signed him to that extension. Not that long ago, to a 4-year extension. Is that them just shoring up to, to figure out second base whenever Ketel Marte's done? But Marte's under contract through 2027. He could fill in at third base, so you wait to see what happens with Eugenio Suarez. You can shuffle some guys around there. So right now on that big league roster, Lawler, it's really the ball is in Lawler's court. He's got to force the issue for the Padres if he could, and then perform and live up to the hype. Absolutely could be a surprise as a Rookie of the Year candidate, but he hasn't shown it yet. And I think that's the biggest issue with Lawler is we just haven't seen him yet. We haven't seen him grab the bull by the horns, say, this is my spot, this is my position. Padres, I am your man. We haven't seen that from him yet. And so the shine starts to fade off of a prospect like Lawler. Where maybe something happens. He's still not on the roster. Padres are in good contending spot. There's somebody on the market that they can make a big swing for. Maybe you have to include him in a trade package later in the season. So Lawler's in that weird spot where we're just waiting for him to break through. Do something. We got that brief taste in 2023, and that's it. It's just wild how that happens. Because last season, across 3 levels, a lot of rehabbing. He just played 23 games professionally last season. He did well in his 23 games rehabbing across the 3 levels, especially down there in AAA Reno. So he's still got it in him. Can it translate to the big leagues? And can he prove he's healthy and just get the job done? Because it's the Diamondbacks are in that place where they're a contending team. They're making moves that contending teams do, like a Corbin Burns, like a Josh Naylor. If the time comes to it, guys like Lawler end up on the chopping block as trade chips. And Norm in the chat, a big. This sums it up really is unless the team is a bottom feeder, rookies are not given a long leash in the big leagues. It's unrealistic to expect kids to hit the ground running, but that's the world we live in. Exactly. Especially in sports, the timelines move so quickly. You need guys to contribute immediately. In a lot of the other sports, especially basketball, NFL, even hockey sometimes, you want your top guys to come in and make immediate impacts. Baseball, there is some of that growth period because of the minor league system, but it's getting quicker with that pipeline where if your top prospects sometimes aren't up there in 3 years contributing, well, they're a bust type of mentality. So it all comes with that urgency and philosophy approaches by a team. Because you look at the Dodgers, yeah, they have a good farm system. How many of those prospects actually get to the Dodgers and contribute wholeheartedly and make a huge impact? Not a lot, especially nowadays where so many of them just end up becoming cannon fodder thing. And yeah, NFL quarterbacks do have it super rough. They have it really rough. Coming in and trying to basically be a savior of a franchise sometimes. And so, yeah, it's rough stuff. So that is something that's nice about baseball is there is that expected development time where, okay, hopefully in 3 years at least this guy can come up and start playing on the big league team and contribute, being a little seasoned. But, well, unless you're the Angels who, they say, to heck with it, we'll call this guy up 2 months after we drafted him. So, who knows? Because that's really worked out well for the Angels over the years. Yeah, but with Lawler, to sum that up, he has the potential to be that surprise, but it's really hard to see him cracking through as a Rookie of the Year this season, unless he could definitely be that surprise. But Right now, I won't hold my breath for him, but I will be pleasantly surprised if he does. I reserve that right to change my opinion. Yeah, other than that, like with the Diamondbacks, one things out, they don't have a lot. Like they're a homegrown team, so they have a lot of those young guys already on the roster, uh, guys that can plug in here and there. But most of the big league ready ones have already lost their rookie status, and they're pretty well, figured out across the board. You could see a guy like a Yumin Lin maybe make an appearance this season. So who knows? But we'll see what happens with the Diamondbacks. But yeah, a lot hanging on Jordan Lawlar to be that piece, like hopefully like a missing piece to the puzzle for him. Another utility infielder, because then maybe he comes in, he can work as a third baseman or the shortstop. Perdomo can move to third or whatever. Just get him on the field, because then Suarez can DH, play occasional third base, fill in at first base as needed. But I think the main thing for the Diamondbacks, just get the kid on the field. Find a spot for him and just let him swim. See if you can do it and see what you got there. And then adjust as needed to be a competitor. But Diamondbacks are in a good place. And the nice thing is with a lot of these teams, like, they're not thinking about Rookie of the Year. They just want their younger players to just come in and contribute. Who cares if they're getting Rookie of the Year awards? But they're in a good spot just as a team, and it'd be nice to get some more of these useful pieces up and going. Yeah, and call me Astro exactly with this point. At some point, you just have to call them, see what happens, right? Absolutely, and that is a perfect segue into the last team we can talk about here with Rookie of the Year in the National League West, the old Colorado Rockies. And they're in that position where you just got to let some of these young guys play and see what you got. In 2023, they let Nolan Jones play. They let him play, finally, and finish out the season with a Rookie of the Year campaign. Finishes fourth. And so teams in like the Rockies situation is where you can get a little bit more of that leeway of, just put a guy out there and see what you got. You have to be a little bit more wise about it with some of your other teams. The Diamondbacks could do it. The Dodgers, less so to do it. Padres, maybe. Giants are another team that could. So most of the teams here in the National League West could benefit from that. Just call some guys up at some point and just let them run with it, and start getting that experience. Contending teams, a little less so because they're in that win now mode. But we move out to the Rockies, and here in the video, in the description, you can see they mentioned maybe Drew Romo, but from what it sounds like, Drew Romo's not even going to be really a main catcher this season. Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post talking about how Romo probably needs another year of development under his belt before he can really take over that starting catcher role. That's why Jacob Stallings is back. That's why the team has Austin Nola in camp. Hunter Goodman now has the offensive possibilities, offensive potential. That's probably putting him into the backup catcher role to start the season. So Romo probably goes down to AAA for some more seasoning, works with probably an Austin Nola down there, and develops more to get his bat going in and continue to firm things up defensively behind the dish. And he's still a young kid that was drafted out of high school. I can understand that with Romo, as much as I would love for the Rockies to just plug him in, let him see what he can do here in a full season just working at the big league level. They want offense, and I feel like they're just going to take a little more care with him and realize more of the faults that they see in him and let him work on those, and then let Hunter Goodman kind of work through those things and just see what they've got there with Jacob Stallings. So other than that, you don't have a lot of other rookie options position player-wise. Romo probably would have been your best, and that's who Thomas Harding pegged back in December in that same article I'd mentioned earlier about a candidate for each MLB team. Romo was his selection. I don't really see that happening. There's just still a lot that he has to grow and develop. He's like 22, 23. He's still young, and catching is a very hard position. But you would hope he can, at some point, get more of that action and really develop into that franchise catcher the Rockies have been looking for throughout their history. But the dark horse candidate, probably more so than Romo, and it would be a tough one, is Chase Dollander, who was in camp with the Rockies, has looked good on the mound. Yeah, he's been roughed up, but even aside from the spring training stats in his last start, overall has looked good, pounding the zone, getting the strikeouts, looking every bit the big league pitcher that he could be. Hopefully to crack the opening day roster. Huge potential. If he could do that and pitch well and be competitive at Coors Field, that would be really interesting. Because, folks, remember, the only Rookie of the Year winner in Rockies history is a pitcher, Jason Jennings. No, not Troy Tulowitzki, not Nolan Arenado, not Todd Helton. It's Jason Jennings. How he won that, who knows still. But he did, which is the weirdest thing in franchise history. So there's precedent. Chase Dollander could come in and have a good season. If he comes in, dominates as a rookie, and is competitive, both at Coors Field. If the dude could dominate Coors Field just alone and put up really good numbers there and good to average road numbers, you look at that and you think, oh, dang, that guy needs some notoriety, put some notoriety on that name for the Rookie of the Year voting. But looking at Jason Jennings' Rookie of the Year numbers, he made 32 starts, had a 4.52 ERA. So he was worth 2.1 WAR. Went 16-8. So that's when wins were actually like weighed quite a bit. Had 185 and a third innings, 127 strikeouts, 70 walks, gave up 26 home runs, 102 runs total, 93 earned. Had a 4.68 FIP and a 106 ERA plus. So you look at those numbers and you're like, how did that win Rookie of the Year? Which, hey, that's pretty fair. But he had 94% of the vote to win it. Next place was Brad Wilkerson, who had 36% of the vote. Wilkerson, who was a position player there with the Montreal Expos. And then in third place was Austin Kern. So somehow, Jennings wins it. And part of it too, he had his batting stats, so he hit pretty well. He had a 306 average that season. But somehow, I don't know why it was, but there in that year, he's able to win the Rookie of the Year. If Dollander can even just... It would take better than those numbers for Dollander to win Rookie of the Year, especially in this day and age. But if he could just replicate some of that success, rack up the wins, put up a better ERA, he could at least be entered into the conversation more. Still probably wouldn't win it just because of the era we live in now. But he could enter that conversation, I think even more so than Romo. Yeah, it wasn't a great rookie class, and rookies are even better nowadays, but Dollander could enter into that conversation like, hey, a guy that can dominate Coors Field, it's like, even then, it just entered in the conversation, just like with Kyle Freeland in 2018, phenomenal season, probably even had a case to win that, to be a better contender for that Cy Young that season, but he ends up fourth place, which, hey, perfectly fine. Great year, like Ubaldo that one year as well. So there's precedent where good performance can get you some notoriety. I think Dollander could enter into those conversations, but it would be a lot tougher for him as a pitcher than a Roki Sasaki or some of these other guys. But he would be the guy to do it. And then in the years to come, Charlie Condon, whenever he appears, hopefully he's gets more comfortable, gain that confidence throughout the minors, can be up sooner rather than later. Be awesome. But some of these other guys like a Zach Veen, Yanquiel Fernandez, Adiel Amador, some of those guys, probably not contenders for it whenever they do come up. They could, maybe at some point, but probably not for the outset. But in 2025, Dollander probably would be the Rockies' pony in that race. But again, a tough class, and it's going to be hard for a Rockies pitcher, especially in the good rookie classes that we have year after year now. It would be hard for him to do an upset or something. But who knows? I think it's a lot of things. Dollander could be into that conversation. But it's always fun to think about. But beyond the National League West, there's going to be so many options throughout the year. A couple of those guys, you got like Rhett Lawler, you got tons of guys across the league coming in that could get into it. Bubba Chandler, some of you have mentioned here in the comments. There's always good rookies every year. And Norm Dollander gets at least 20 starts, keeps an under 8 ERA under 4. Yeah, he's in that conversation. And I think a big part of it too, a lot of the heavy lifting will be how he does at Coors Field. If he's on that opening day roster and throughout the season, how does he perform at Coors Field? If he puts up good numbers there and then like really good numbers on the road, even puts him in a good spot. I feel like if he gets that ERA under 4, like you're saying, it puts him into the conversation. If he can then keep up the strikeouts and a lot of those other metrics, that puts him in a contention against a Roki Sasaki. And then if he stays healthy and maybe works more innings, a bit more of a workhorse, Jennings put up 185 innings when he won it. In that ballpark, wouldn't be too shabby. Because he's definitely more of a prolific strikeout pitcher than, say, Jennings would be. Legit shot. So that's the nice thing for Rockies fans to think like, hey, there's a guy who could have a legit shot. Before he even starts playing, like, yeah, we could see this guy like being that type of player. Because you look at other rookies on the team, you're like, yeah, maybe, like, who knows, but Dollander seems like that guy that would be a prime candidate for it. And hopefully we're right. Hopefully it's a nice surprise. And hopefully all these rookies we've mentioned are those surprises. You always want to root for these young guys. Hope they can crack through, be contributors, and find that success. Because, hey, even beyond them just contending for a Rookie of the Year, they're just established good big leaguers. And every team wants that. It proves that teams are right about the guys they draft. They can develop them and help them perform at the highest level, which ultimately at the end of the day is what you want. And then the award and stuff is just an extra bonus. But yeah, fun stuff. There's a lot of exciting rookies in the National League West, and it's going to be fun to see what they can do because there's so much talent in this division, and it's hard with the disparity in it. Like the Rockies are a bottom feeder type team, and you got the Dodgers. There's such a wide gap between some of these teams, but there is talent to be found on every roster, and plenty of talent with rookies. So we'll see how it happens throughout the season. But that'll bring this episode of Best of the West to a close. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. Call me Astro, Norm Lee. We also had Isaac there in the chat. Appreciate you tuning in, and those not joining in the chat, appreciate you tuning in and following along here each and every week and listening to me ramble to myself for about an hour. Hopefully we'll have either Kenneth or somebody here next week, so you don't have to hear me as much running out of breath. But appreciate your interactions and tune along. It helps out quite a bit. Be sure to follow Blake Street Banner here on YouTube, like and subscribe, and be able to share in the comments what other rookies that you're looking forward to in the National League West, or just in the division, in the rest of baseball in general, any predictions you have for Rookie of the Years or rookies to keep an eye on throughout the season. But you can follow Blake Street Banner here on YouTube, also your favorite podcasting platforms, and be sure to follow him on social media. You can find me on Twitter at Skylar Timmons or on Blue Sky stimmons13.bsky.social. Find me over at purplerow.com, writing Wednesday rock piles. Always fun over there. And also find me doing other podcasts around, like Rocky Mountain Rooftop. I lurk around doing all kinds of stuff, talking Rockies baseball. But until next time, I'm Skylar Timmons. We'll see you next time. And remember, the best is yet to come.